The most hated character in Attack on Titan is certainly Gabi Braun. Of course, she is on the fandom's shit list for killing one of the most beloved characters, Sasha, and then continuing to spew propaganda about the Island Devils. I know Gabi is one of the most controversial characters in the series, but I also think she is clearly one of the most important. In this video, I want to try and find out the reasons why Gabi is one of the most important characters in Attack on Titan. You might be thinking it's not possible for a character who is introduced in the latter half of a series to be one of the most important, but while narratively Gabi's role is actually quite minor, thematically it helps us contextualize what the rest of the series is saying. The first place to look is the parallels between Gabi and Eren. Isayama was not shy about showing us how Gabi is basically the same as a young Eren. Eren wanted to kill all the Titans, and Gabi wants to kill all of the Island Devils. For Gabi, if all of those Island Devils would just die, then maybe she could clear her name for the good Eldians. For Eren, killing all of the Titans meant that he would be free. Both of these ideas are inherently misguided. When one enemy is destroyed, another will always appear in its place. Gabi and Eren's hatred of the enemy is the clear critique of nationalism seen through the series. The idea that there is one enemy that causes harm to all is thoroughly dismantled through these characters' journeys. Eren makes it to the sea and realizes that there are more humans out there, and that there is not one true enemy. Gabi is forced to live among the devils and understands that they are no different from every other person she has met in her life. The parallel between these two are essential to understanding the core of Attack on Titan. Gabi's development, which has been described as forcefully blunt by some, is a perfect progression of how the series has evolved. The criticism of the first season was that no character really develops, but that is clearly not the case with Gabi. Her change from a narrow-minded soldier to someone who can start to understand where the other side is coming from is essential to understanding this story. Gabi starts out the story with the goal to show the Marleyans that Eldians outside of Paradise Island are actually good and should not be thrown in with the devils who committed atrocities in the past. In Gabi's viewpoint, the Island Devils should all be wiped out because, well, they're devils. This viewpoint is what drives Gabi to push her as hard as she does. If you look at Gabi in isolation of her really skewed world perspective and the things that she does in the Marley arc, all you get is an incredibly hard-working girl who has proved to be a valuable soldier. However, Gabi becomes terrifying in a way when you understand that her drive is rooted in hatred for people who she has never met before. And seeing her forced into a situation where she needs to interact with these people is one of the most interesting aspects of the post-time skip material. Attack on Titan has always been a story that forces its characters into absurdly difficult situations to force each character to choose a path. It starts in the first episode with Hannes choosing to save the kids and not fight the Titan, then Eren in the forest against Annie, Historia in the cave, and the most iconic of all, the Serum Bowl. Gabi and Falco staying with Sasha's family is the exact same as those other situations. For Gabi's character, there is probably nothing more difficult than her living with the Island Devils who are being kind to her and offering her food and shelter. And to make things worse, she ends up living with a family whose daughter she killed. Here we are confronted head-on with the cycle of violence. Gabi argues that Island Devils deserve all of the suffering caused by the Titans because they did that to the rest of the world hundreds of years ago. Then Kaya arguing that her mother did nothing and did not deserve to be eaten by a Titan. What is most haunting about this conversation to me is that these are both kids. These two characters have barely lived out a fraction of their lives, but are forced to argue about extremely violent events because of the world they live in. Gabi's perspective is one of extreme manipulation from the adults around her. Of course, the Marleyans who have oppressed her, but even her own family who help fuel the hatred inside of her. Gabi is engaging in a dialogue of beliefs that aren't even really hers, but opinions from adults in her life. And that's what's so heartbreaking about this exchange. Gabi's relationship with Kaya shows us the cycle of violence at its most heartbreaking in the series. Gabi was told by her oppressors that the Island Devils are the cause for her being locked up in an internment camp, their justification being the atrocities they committed to the Marleyans hundreds of years prior. Gabi kills one of them to prove to her oppressors that she is innocent. Then, when the Island Devils see what she has done, they attempt to fight back. This is how the cycle of violence continues in the world of Attack on Titan and our own. Gabi being central to the idea that violence will always fuel more violence. You may hate that Gabi murdered Sasha, I know I do, but we know that Gabi was fed lies that led her to think that was the only way for her salvation. Whether you like her or not does not matter, but Gabi's role in the story of Attack on Titan is incredibly important to understand the ideas and themes of the story. And before we wrap up this video, I want to touch on Gabi's final role at the end of the story. So if you don't want spoilers for the rest of the manga after episode 5, skip to the time on screen. The ending of Attack on Titan's story has been controversial to say the least. One of the most interesting elements about the story for the last about 15 chapters or so is the notable lack of Gabi that we get. Gabi is central to the post-time skip material and commands a ton of screen time throughout the War for Paradise arc, and her conclusion to her arc is one that directly ties into the main theme of the story. As we know, Gabi ends up saving the people who she swore were devils, and then aids the remaining scouts in trying to kill Eren during the rumbling. Gabi has always been a reflection of Eren, and her contrasting development alongside his is striking and allows us to see one of the main ideas Isayama is trying to present. That violence cannot be fixed through violence. Gabi is super violent, killing many people just like Eren. However, even though she attempts to kill Eren, he still survives and continues the rumbling. The key to Gabi's tale comes many years after the events of the rumbling, when she is now standing alongside the people who she called devils. The one way for her to become allies and even friends with them was not through violence, but an understanding. It is understanding that makes Gabi such a key character to the story. In the end, Eren ends up failing because he tried to achieve freedom through violence, while eventually Gabi understands that maybe there's a different way. Gabi's mirroring of Eren is what makes her such a fantastic character initially, but it is the difference between her path and Eren's made clear after spending time on Paradise Island, which shows us why she's maybe the most important character in the entire story. That Gabi is what happens when the cycle of hatred and violence continues to grow, and for Gabi to overcome her prejudice towards the Eldians in Paradise, she will have to walk a far different path than the one Eren went on. I think what I love most about Gabi's character is how she comments on the entirety of Attack on Titan's story, even though she is introduced so late into the series. Gabi shows us how younger generations will act if we teach them to hate, and she even shows us how we could possibly overcome the history of violence that we have caused. So yeah, Gabi is a bastard for killing Sasha, and no one will ever totally get over that. However, it's difficult to argue against the fact that Gabi is thematically one of the most interesting and important characters in all of Attack on Titan. Thank you so much for watching this video. We finally made it to 1,000 subscribers, so thank you guys so much for your support. It's really exciting, and I'm excited to keep making videos. Hopefully we'll be about a video a week moving forward. We've got some fun high-Q Attack on Titan videos specifically that I've been working on right now, so look forward to that. So thank you again for 1K, and I hope to see you in the next one.